within our core, in the depths of our nature, is a 2 million-year-old man. Like this primordial show has been around the whole time, witnessed it all too. That's part of the human psyche too. That's the Atman, and the self in the Jungian sense is watching all the time. It's birthless and deathless, and been watching the drama, watching the play, watching the big theater of our lives. So like in Greek theater, where all theater comes from, and then all cinema and that there was one actor, and that actor would wear all the different masks. So who is that one actor? That's the self. That's the Atman. That the mask is the persona. He plays different roles. Whatever is unconscious is projected. So that's a lot. That's why there's so much crazy shadow projection. It happened collectively to whole nations, projecting on each other.
Welcome to this new episode, and today is another special episode with HinduDave from Pi. How are you, HinduDave?
I'm doing very well, very well. Happy to see you.
Very nice. So HinduDave is an archetypal astrologist, someone very interested in world religions, and someone who's also have a deep understanding of Jungian psychology. So the second special episode with HinduDave is going to be about Jungian psychology, which is a really fascinating subject, particularly in the context of, again, astrology, archetypes, and spirituality as well, because I think among the master psychologists of our era, Jung is possibly the master that more delved into archetypes, mythology, astrology, etc. So I can see a clear link between the different realms of knowledge that you bring to this channel today. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, HinduDave, what is your passion with Jung? How it developed?
It came about through my early passion when I was like 25 years old, 24 years old, when I first began to do a really sustained and serious study of astrology. And whenever you're entering into any like high quality Western astrological veins of inquiry, Jung is right at the center. It's when I first encountered him, and it was like he was inside astrology, and actually astrology is deep inside of Jung too. A lot of the structure and religious cartography of the psyche, the mapping of the psyche, did a lot of it came from astrology, and so yeah, and the planets in astrology are the Greek gods with Latin names, and these are archetypal powers. So immediately Jung's involved in all of this, and all the best astrologers like Liz Green, she's probably the premier astrologer of my generation. She's still alive, very very productive, and she's a Jungian analyst as well. And Stephen Arroyo, Dane Rujar. I mean, these probably names you don't know, but they're like epic names in astrology. They're like on the but they are all deeply immersed in Jung, and the marriage of Jungian, the different levels and of Jungian psychology and the astrological map of the human personality, really, they come out of the same soil. They're coming out of the archetypal soil. And Jung was he had a great gift to tune into that dimension, and so I tried to study him. Just like I read the Portable Jung was edited by Joseph Campbell. That was the first time I saw Joseph Campbell's name. So right away, I'm in like the threads of my own personal destiny in terms of my spiritual path and unfolding. And but it was like, wow, it was like really challenging. And now I've been studying Jung for 40 years, 40 years. And but it takes that kind of maturing of your own soul and your own capacity for cognition, and it's a ripening process. Wisdom comes over the course of knowledge comes quickly, different kinds of knowledge and how to categorize it. Wisdom is like the ripening of that level. So Jung, was an early hero, and Carl Jung is on the album cover of Sgt. Pepper. He's in the top row too. Aleister Crowley's up there too, and Sri Yateshwar and Yogananda's up there as well. And so, yeah, and the whole New Age movement, Jung's deeply, of all the psychologists, he's the one that speaks most to that spiritual dimension and the maps that he's provided, how to navigate these realms and think symbolically and mythically, and always looking for the roots of things, always looking like, like for instance, Jung, in Jungian tradition, it's called amplification. It's a very important part of Jungian psychology. It's like when some image, some symbol, something, or you try to understand some symbol in astrology, but some symbol rising up out of your own psyche in a dream, or some vision, or some piece of art that compelled you. The way to understand that is you look into the religious and historical and artistic, wherever that symbol emerges. And it's inside of words very deeply as well, so it's like called etymology is a Jungian, it's a science that Jungians use a lot, going to the root origins of words, where they come from. So Jung's always going for it's called depth psychology, and I'm a Scorpio too, and so depth is like my, that's like the essence of being a Scorpio, depth and intensity, but the occult and the hidden and the unconscious dimensions of life. So Jung entered, and then, like I said, that led me to Joseph Campbell. It's like this whole, and it happened fairly quick. I met Joseph Campbell in 1983, but Jung already had died in 1961 when I was still a boy. I didn't know anything about him then, of course, but it was like the discovery was great joy to my soul, and it's been endlessly deep. And so prolific too. There's so many writers, Jungian inspired writers. So it's like you go to any good bookstore in the West, and you go to the psychology session, or the self-help side, but go to psychology section, and Freud he's disappearing. There's like there's like maybe like this big of a shelf, and Jung's got like 9 shelves, It's like, it's just very alive and very tuned to the zeitgeist and spirit of our time. So that's how I came to Jung, through my astrological explorations.
It's fascinating indeed, and when you talk about astrology and you talk about mythology, and you are in a temple right now in Pi that you built yourself, right? It's you got a beautiful background there, and it's I think that the temple where you are sitting right now is also the fruit of your passion and love for everything which is myth, and everything that is religions and spirituality. And as you said, Jung is definitely part of this realm of science, literature, and sort of inquiry, right? But
Yeah.
I think that Jung had some sort of defining moment during his maturation or his life that sort of came about through dreams. Is that right?
Yeah, that is very true. Jung is in his map of the psyche, Jungian typology. He's an intuitive type. He's an introverted, intuitive thinker. You know, and so right from a child, he was like prone to visions, and and his mother too has had like psychic qualities, and both sides of his family, mother and father, ministers. Jung's father was a minister. So it's like his bloodline, his ancestral line, right embedded in religious thought and theology and so he remained a Christian all his life, but he was like a deep mystic, Gnostic. He was the far left of your radio dial, but he stayed a Christian, and he stayed really very true to the Western traditions too. He thought it was essential if you're a Westerner to have that too. It doesn't mean you don't open to other, open to yoga and open to the East, but that your own roots and heritage are still present in you, And so anyway, to go back to your question, Jung had a number of significant dreams, and actually one that was like totally prophetic and like in a flash, like the unconscious can, in the form of the language of symbols and archetypes, give a whole vista of your entire life. What's like the whole, or something that you're destined to be. So as an example, this is a really very important Jungian dream. Jung is probably 35 years old around this time. But anyway, he has a dream, and he's in his library office where he sees his patients, his private practice, and he has a major research library, massive amount of mythology and hermeticism and religion and science, lots of science. But anyway, he's thinking about, in the dream, he's working on a project, he's writing a book, and he goes up to get a book he gets up to go to the bookshelf to get another book in his study process, and he notices as he's walking up, there's a door next to the shelf he'd never seen before. He goes, what's this? So Jung opens the door, and there's a staircase, a stone staircase, like a marble staircase. He's like walking down the staircase, and he comes into a like 15th century, 16th century alchemist laboratory, and all kinds of medieval stuff. There's like that. He's back about half a millennium, and he's fascinated, and he sees a bunch of alchemy texts, and he walks over there, and behind some dried roots and things, he sees another door, and he opens that door, and it's like a steep staircase, just not a staircase even, just almost like a ladder, and he goes down, and he's in Greco-Roman ruins. He's in Greco-Roman civilization and time. He went back another 1,500 years, and then he sees it's like a manhole kind of thing. It was like a door on the floor, the big steel thing. He pulls it open, and this is just a ladder, like a rickety ladder. He's going down into the dark, and he ends up in a Neolithic cave, like a cave drawings and stuff. So like a glimpse in one flash, the whole spectrum of the human psyche, down to its most universal, the collective unconscious, and down to the roots of where we enter into matter, and and then up through the ancestral unconscious, and then deeper layers. It's like the whole human psyche is like an archaeological dig, and it's right in our anatomy as well. It's like you go through the neocortex and you're into the limbic mammalian brain, and then you go deeper, you're in the reptile brain. So it's all there in us. And Jung in the flash, which symbols are able to do in dreams, and when you're able to interpret symbols, so boom, or they're delivered like that in a dream, that's like pure communication from the unconscious. And so that was obviously a really big one that comes to mind. And but he paid a lot of attention to dreams, and particularly when you got that deeper layer, you get down to the Greco-Roman, you're in the pure mythic realm. Then those are the archetypes. For Westerners, that's like even the days of the week are named after the gods, right? It's it's just part of our tapestry. Even though, however modern and what we're doing, it's like this is also, there's this great, Jung made a comment one time that within our core, in the depths of our nature, is a 2 million-year-old man. Like this primordial shadow has been around the whole time, witnessed it all too. That's part of the human psyche too. That's the Atman, and the self in the Jungian sense is watching all the time. It's birthless and deathless, and but watching the drama, watching the play, watching the big theater of our lives.
This dream is the representation of the unconscious, something that is deeper inside our psyche and is mostly hidden and can be revealed to us. And in his case, it was revealed through a dream. But we can obviously access these treasures that you find from the medieval times or the Greco-Roman times. So symbolically, these treasures are inside our unconscious, and through psychoanalysis and different other techniques, we can bring back to life this sort of a collective as well as personal memories or traits of ourselves. So can you explain the difference between the collective unconscious and the personal unconscious?
I mean, this is our legacy and inheritance, this whole collective treasure trove. We're like born with it, but it's it says invisible because it's unconscious. They don't call it the unconscious for nothing. When it's unconscious, it's unseen for sure. It's invisible to us, and so it requires, like coaxing it into the light so we can. And but the personal unconscious, I think like that dream really foreshadows the like the cartography of the Jungian psyche. Is he experienced it and articulated it and mapped it and lived it himself. So the outermost layer, like the skin level, is the persona. That's where Facebook and the face, how your face looks and how you're seen, and your unique identity, your personality, your unique style, how you do, it's like the most extroverted. It's the most out in the with other beings, like you're just and it's the social adaptations that we do, how we can wear all these different masks. And persona means mask. So like in Greek theater, where all theater comes from, and then all cinema and that there was one actor, and that actor would wear all the different masks. So who is that one actor? That's the self. That's the Atman. That the mask is the persona. We play these different roles. Now I'm friend. Now I'm brother. Now I'm student. Now I'm teacher. All the different masks that we play. So then the persona is the mask of the ego, and the ego is the epicenter of the conscious mind. It's like the nucleus, it's like the sun in the solar system. That the ego is the psychological structure that's like the nucleus of the conscious mind. how much you're conscious and part of your, you know, what your world's like and what are you aware of at any moment, where your attention's going. And the ego is the essence of uh, I-ness or I me mindness, I me mind, and I-ness, and the word ego too is it's an anagram, right? It's like EGO is also GEO. Geo means Earth, like geography, geology, geophysics. Geo and ego are the same. So you're in the Earth. Your Earth is your body. You're in a unique body. You're in a unique constellation of karmas and histories and genetics that, you know, brewed up this particular, like Luca experience, you know. So this is like the realm of the conscious psyche, and it's quite often it's, you know, how it negotiates the community and the world and the external, the time you're living in, and those are all matters for the conscious mind and the different personae we wear and in the ego's concerns. And then the background, that the conscious mind and the ego nucleus is suspended, it is the personal unconscious, this layer of the psyche. And the personal unconscious is everything about this lifetime. What happened to Luca when he was a boy? What happened when you were born? What happened when you were a teenager? What was your first sexual experience? What was all that's, you know, it's like, in everything that you don't remember now about your childhood or don't remember about last week is in the personal unconscious. It's all related. So like even when dreams too can occur at all these different levels. When a lot of dreams are happening in the level of personal unconscious, and you're like digesting what's going on in your life. It's about somehow related to you and your world. And yeah, so it's all the material that's fell out of in things that we've rejected and repressed too, that we're getting socialized, the things that aren't approved. You're not getting loved, you're not getting stroked for that. You're not, you know, no, you can't do that. You can't, you know, can't be that open with your power. It's not good to be angry. You know, you should be a nice guy, good boy, follow the rules. You know? Then you get strokes, but we're throwing away real parts of ourselves, vital parts of ourselves. There's so much authenticity and realness. These different drives that get repressed and rejected, and that becomes the shadow. And the shadow is the nucleus, the epicenter of the personal unconscious. So every level of the unconscious has a nucleus, just like the solar system has its nucleus. Just like the solar system too, there's like all the planets are orbiting, all the gods are orbiting the sun, all the archetypes. So the shadow is, it's all those things that we've abandoned, rejected, repressed, projected. Like this is a classic Jungian axiom. Whatever is unconscious is projected. So that's a lot. That's why there's so much crazy shadow projection. It happened collectively to whole nations, you know, projecting on each other. But it's all coming out of the human psyche. There's a lot of human psyches, you know. That's where, but the shadow is, you know, it's like the adversary, the thing that you don't want to see, you don't want to, and you don't want other people to see it. That's even more important. You're like how we could hide ourselves, hide our virility, and a lot of shadows made up of like more powerful raw drives, you know, like sexuality, anger, greed. You know, it's like, no, it's not nice to be greedy. It's not nice to be too lusty. You know, you got to get some kind of container around this. But the shadow's like the id more. It's like, you know, so it's like the Freudian id, the instinctive drives. The shadow's like a personification of that energy. It's all about us, and it's all about particularly the people that trigger you big time too. You know, they're carrying a lot of your shadow for you. You know? And and the shadow is the door, the essential, unavoidable door you have to pass through in the process of individuation and self-realization. So you have
Oh,
to go
yes,
into,
yes.
you got to go through the door of where you're the most, like the shadow, in Jungian typology, called the inferior function. The shadow is always in whatever your dominant function is, the shadow is always going to be involved in and that's where you're the most clumsy and you're most undeveloped in a lot of ways. So you don't want to do that. It's not, you don't want to be like clumsy and making mistakes and faux pas. And so and Jung said once too, he said, the magnum opus and the central drive of incarnation is wholeness, to approach wholeness, to always be going to higher and higher orders of integration and wholeness. And he said, and we don't become whole by strengthening our strengths, by doing the things we already do really well. Having to do that. No, he said, we become whole by making our weakness conscious, making our shadow conscious. I was like, whoa, it's really hard work. I mean, people don't want to do depth psychology. It's just, you go, what? We're going into this stuff. You're wanting to go there to get enlightened, or talk to the gods, but this is the door. This is the only door that opens to that. In alchemy, they said that's the nigredo. That's the black, putrefied, rejected material that nobody wants. But that's where the philosopher's stone is in there. So it's through the door of the shadow. And then on that path and the deeper layers, as you're getting closer to like the collective unconscious, you encounter the anima and the animus. They're like the personifications and guides to the collective unconscious. Like Hermes, one of Hermes' names is Hermes Psychopompus. He's the guide of souls. So the anima is the internal feminine in a man. And it's like your soul. The anima means soul. It's your soulfulness, your aliveness in your heart. It's the life of your heart and your feeling body, and she's the guide. She's like the muse, and she's the guide to the spiritual realm, the higher realms. And for the woman, it's the animus. And animus is like more of spirit. For woman, she's like spirit and soul are two distinct things in Jungian psychology. Spirit is always very masculine and upward. It's going for formlessness and liberation. And soul is the elements water and earth. It's always going inside, going deeper feelings, deeper experiences, more emotional, more, like really bonding to this place, or it's like the life of the soul. And so the woman already, the feminine already carries the soul just by being in the female body in many ways, so it's like just part of the equipment. And for the men, the animus is in him. The spirit is inside of men, and they're always striving for, like, they're using their thinking function and their intuitive, like spiritual rising up, and so that's the myth of Eros and Psyche. Eros is spirit, the winged spirit, and Psyche is the she's a human too. She's a human woman that fell in love with God, and is trying to reconnect with him, and so the soul and the spirit, the marriage of the sun and the moon, the alchemical, the golden sun and the silver moon melding together, and that opens to the self. That's the self. Jung pulled this directly from the Atman in Hindu yogic psychology, and the self is the nucleus again of the entire psyche. It's the center of the collective unconscious, but also just like how the ego is the earth, and the moon actually are earth and moon are the same system. They're just parts of each other, and that they're orbiting the sun. The self is the sun. The self is the inner sun in us. And so it's the light of God, the light of consciousness, the light of awareness, the light uh, of bliss, the potential to see, like Hindus say, Satchitananda. So like the essence and the language of the self. So capital S is the Bhagavad Gita coming off Krishna's lips, Christ speaking on the mount, Sermon on the Mount, the Buddha giving the Dhammapada, the Diamond Sutra things. These things are like eternally big hits, like Homer's description of the gods, the Greek gods. This stuff is undying. That's the language of the self. It's the eternal in us. It's the birthless and deathless divinity. And the moon, the psyche, the soul, is the Jiva Atman. They're both Atman. They're both eternal. But the Atman is the spirit. It's like Shiva, like the way in tantric iconography, Shiva is lying on the ground. Shivasana, he's lying on the ground, and he's rendered in white marble. And Kali, his Shakti, his Kali Durga, she's always black, Martin. She's standing on his chest, and she's in dynamic movement, and he's lying there. He's the formless, empty void, Shunyata, and Kali means time in Sanskrit. It's a black time. So she's the womb and the tomb, the great mother. You come out of her, you come back into her over and over again on your journey. And but time is the moving face of eternity. So Kali standing, so the yin and yang there, the male and female again, Kali is the psyche there too. She's the life of the body and time. That's all the moon. The moon is the measure of time, the psyche. All about this lifetime and this story and this, and the self is profoundly transpersonal. It's not, it's going to, like the psyche, and psychology is the science of the psyche. It's the exploration of the psyche, is subjectiveness itself. It's the very principle of subjective, about what's going on inside you, how you cognize, how you remember, what you desire, all that inner life. That's all the moon. That's all the psyche.
It's clear to me that there are lots of treasures hiding in the unconscious, and there are two types of unconscious. You have the group or collective unconscious, which come from tradition, myth, and is very ancient, of course, and everybody has that, of course, as well as the individual unconscious, that is more related to our individual experience of growing up, relating to our parents, our environment, all the sort of trauma and experiences that we have, and maybe we want to sort of ignore or somehow put away because they might be challenging to deal with. So the concept of integration is key to Jungian psychology, and that means that we need to integrate these parts of us that are inside our psyche, but not seen. In order to integrate these treasures that we have in our unconscious, we need to do some work, some psychoanalytical work, and some work of sort of bringing light to the shadow itself. Is that correct? And how does this integration of different aspects of our psyche that are ignored then lead to individuation, which is also another key concept in Jungian psychology?
It is. Individuation is the essence of that process, that wholeness-making process, integrating the conscious and unconscious, the masculine and feminine. All this is within your psyche too. This is the inner metamorphoses. The working of wholeness occurs inside the laboratory of the psyche, the internal intrapsychic realm, they call it, and so the subjective realm. And the collective unconscious, another name for it is the objective psyche. The personal unconscious is the subjective psyche. It's all about you and all about your memory and experience, but things that are within range and the things that are out of the field of awareness at any given moment. But so integrating the subjective and objective. The objective is like historical, transpersonal. It's like it thinks in terms of centuries, you know, and uh, and but let's just go to the individuation process. This was a core principle of the soul. You can think of it as the soul's journey, or the pilgrim's progress on the journey back to our original wholeness, from temporality to eternity. It's like the ego archetypal dialogue, the egoic and the archetypal discourse between the archetypal objective psyche and the subjective personal egoic psyche. And the personal egoic psyche, that's the moon, that's lunar consciousness, that's um, the whole world of the inner world of your memories and your feelings and your moods and your dreams and um, your sense of belonging and place to a particular people, particular how you bond to life, how you bond to family, how you bond to place, how you know, and and so and then the objective psyche, the the uh, which the self is the epitome of, the essence of, is that's the psyche that is rooted in eternity. It's the birthless and deathless spark of divinity that resides in us. And as I said before, the language of that level of our psyche, the transpersonal band of our psyche, this archetypal band, is the Bhagavad Gita and Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, Socrates' discourse at his death. You know, all these are like Homer's Homeric hymns in the Iliad and Odyssey, and all the poems to the deities. All that's eternal literature. That's eternally relevant. And the Hindus the Hindus don't call themselves Hindus. Actually, the name for their religion is Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal truth. So this very thing we're talking about is eternally true. You have to update it a little bit, but it's always true. Like the words of the Buddha, or the words of Christ, the words of all the, Krishna, and it's just eternally true. They're speaking at that time, and so individuation is the journey of the soul toward like a state of centering and surrendering to the deeper transpersonal self. It's like getting in proper orbit too, because the self is the sun. When you're orbiting the moon, you're just orbiting your own little story in a way. It's like the proper relationship of the ego and the whole body, mind, all is in relationship to the self, to the true self. And the Hindus have a great saying too, that the ego mind is a magnificent servant, but a devastating master. The master is the self, this eternal divine ground that is at our center. And that's what causes us to be alive and to be conscious. And on individuation, as I say, the first critical step really is the encounter with the shadow. You have to go through that door of personal encounter, like deep kind of ruthless self-honesty, and pulling away all your different rationalities and justifications and whatnot. You're just like really letting yourself be exposed, and going into that and reclaiming too. It's like, as I was saying too, that Jungian axiom, whatever's unconscious is projected. So the shadow is always about projection. It's like somebody really sets you off, or people you don't even know that are public figures and things. You know, it's like carrying shadow, but the projection, the corrective movement is the recollection process, and that's very challenging. Like bringing it back to where the projection came from, bringing it back to like are the birds coming to roost, back pulling in these and seeing how these are really legitimate, important, problematic parts of ourselves. And then we're and it's like following the path of our, like individuation implies too, a deep sense of unique destiny of every individual, the individuation, that you're born to something. You're born for you have a purpose, you have a mission. It's not, your birth is not random. It's not, and it's like, and when you get closer and truer to that and more dedicated and focused on that uniqueness that is inside of you, and then you start, like dehypnotizing yourself from all the socialization you got in your family and your school and in your society, and you're getting, like more and more able to recognize what is authentic to you. And that's when you start approaching the self. But we need guidance. That's where the wise old man is the Animus figure, the wise masculine, the high priestess, the sorceress, the love goddess. That's the Anima. That guides us keeps us on that direction toward an encounter with our source and coming into alignment with that too. And about a lot of surrender, a lot of emptying out. It's like in the tarot, the hangman everything's emptying out of his pockets, all his coins, all his special stuff, you have to empty yourself before you can come into the presence of the divine, but first you have, like Osho said one time, he said, first you have to have an ego before you surrender it, and so we have to go through all that developmental process. And then when you're really ready to become a seeker, a real seeker, and you're really ready to move toward self-actualization, self-realization, like an encounter with the true self, and like getting in proper orbit again. It's like, okay, I'm orbiting the sun. I'm a servant of God. Like in Hinduism, like I said, Ram Das, he's a servant of, Ram means God and Das means servant. Or Hanuman Das, I'm a servant of Hanuman. It's like where the ego gets, the individual psychology gets lined up to the deeper cores of truth, and your life becomes more and more mythically significant and more, and you become a wheel turning out of your own center. You're not being defined from the outside, trying to conform to it, what people think will be successful or how you're received, or you're really just, you're like the sun, you're shining out of yourself. You don't need to do anything but be who you are. Just shine in your wholeness. And so we're divine beings in these earthly adventures we're on, these in visitations to temporality, right?
Yes, I really like the way that you see this as a journey through knowledge, discovery of the shadow, and integration between what we already know and what we discover, and that leads to individuation, which is a form of authenticity, a form of freedom in a certain way, where you can be closer to your real self, and thus, as you said, de-hypnotize and be less subservient to the demands and the requests and the expectations of others, but also find some sort of balance and dynamic where you can be integrated also in your social group in a certain way without being slave to it, right? And I think another element of Jungian psychology is this element of stages in life. where
Yes.
you go through a life journey of individuation. Can you tell us what are those stages?
I can. Yeah, I wanted to say one closing thing about what we talked about, like the encounter with the shadow and all that, but the contrasexual, the encounter with our inner feminine, is a profound stage of evolution, real of wholeness. It's like really coming to real genuine realization, self-actualization, that we have to have that feminine side inside the man, the feminine capacity to know with the heart, and to be passionate about life, and passionate about, so that part is really critical too. And so anyway, stages of life, the life stages, in the Jungian sense and in developmental psychology, in Kabbalistic literature as well. First stage is birth, right? Birth and total dependency too. You come in. Hopefully these people have it together here. This is your karmic nest. You're rising up out of here, and the journey's beginning, and this little bundle of individuality and personal karma. And so that's like the earth phase. And then the moon phase is like childhood, it's more like early childhood, really living very intimate with the mother, and the moon is the mother. And so all that, getting your nurturement needs met. And then the next stage is childhood. That's Mercury. So playfulness, being a boy, that kind of spontaneity and life force and innocence. And then the next stage is Venus, adolescence. The hormones start kicking in. You start seeing the opposite sex. It's like there's this dance, this spark of the heart and beauty and fascination with the other sex. And then the solar phase, that's like young adulthood. You're really like just coming out to meet the world, trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do, and have some fun along the way. It's easy to get hormonally impaired too. You're looking for your mate, you're looking for your life work, and then it's Mars phase, and that's like maturity, like where you are now, like mid 40s. It's like Mars time. Like the rubber's on the road. You got to really be a hero. You got to be brave. You got to make this happen. Take risks. And then like late maturity, like into the 50s, late 50s, coming like up to 60 years old, second Saturn return. That's like Jupiter phase, where you have a certain amount of wisdom that you've accrued from living through your life. Jupiter is wisdom, like a bigger view, more magnanimous attitude toward life and others, and the love of wisdom. The philosopher is the lover of wisdom. Then you go into the next stage, is Saturn, and that's like 60 and up, like 60 to 70 years old. And it's like early aging, that you're starting, you're already getting your Social Security check. You're, you have you get special seats on the bus and different things, and your eyes are changing, your ears are changing, Then Uranus is like old age, getting up to like 80 years old, it's the late 70s, 80s, and then the final step is death. So like each stage has its set of challenges, has its own concerns and necessary adaptations, and all eclipsing realities too. Like when you're born, it's a big deal, right? You're born in Italy to this family, you're you're born in a male body. You're born at that time to catch the cultural historical wave, the things that are happening, the zeitgeist, the Jungians call it, And that's all part of like the Venus stage, adolescence too, becoming a unique, what do you like and what you don't like, kind of food, music. We choose your friends too. What's your circle? Looking for some action with some hot ladies or something, trying to make a connection. And so, and then, yeah, then each stage, you get up into young adulthood, people are, okay, am I going to go to school, go to university? Am I going to, try to just go into the workforce? Am I going to I'm just going to hit the road, I want to see the world. I'm not going to worry about that stuff, and then all these choices individuals make. And then like, like midlife, and you're like you're right there now. It's kind of like in the middle of it, the middle of the journey. And the classic midlife crisis too is, people spend all these years, like going into like uh, uh, first Saturn returns, like 30 years old, and then 10 years after that, it's like whatever you choices you've made, you're raising a family, you've got a corporate job, or but it's like quite often at the midlife crisis, you get to the top of the ladder that you've been climbing, the ladder of success or whatever you've been climbing toward, only to get to the top and realize it's against the wrong wall. Wait a minute, I got to make some adjustments.
It happened early to me. I was quite lucky. It happened when I was 35.
Yeah, that's good. You're lucky. It's like it happens. It can happen all the way up to 48, fourth Jupiter return, and but Jungian psychology is really about the second half of life. Freud and like, look, his psychology and a lot of the classic psychologists and psychoanalysts was about your childhood and what happened in your, the core experiences in your family and early budding sexuality and power dynamics and competition for love and all, it's like all the things you had to learn, to be accepted in this circle. And so that he's like on the personal unconscious. And Jung, the collective unconscious starts to become a possibility like in the second half of life for most people. I mean, you can kind of, younger people get in and things, and sometimes it's not in their best interest, but he felt it was more appropriate, and it happened organically in the second half of life, and you're like, you've done what you're going to do in the world, you made your impact, you say your mid-50s and things, and it's like, okay, now what, why am I really here? What is the deeper meaning of life? And so then that's when that individuation process, I mean, this happens your whole life. You have to go through all these stages with some amount of success, not get too damaged and get to the next, then, but the midlife is like where the journey begins to internalize too. It's like you're like the midlife too is like they call entheodromia in Jungian terminology, and it means a great reversal. Everything reverses itself. So if you're like, you've really putting all your energy in following a particular goal, and you want to make this dream, and you're really going for this, and you've done what you did with it, and then it's like, for the sake of wholeness, a whole other part of yourself has to open up. All the things that didn't develop because of choices we made, or that we were swept along by a certain vision. And so it's like yeah, so that process of, and then eventually, death, you return to where you came from. And the whole thing is a profound, I mean, we came out of a mystery, we returned to a mystery. There's a Zen phrase, a Zen koan, they say, show me your original face, the one you had before you were born, right? It's like, so we're like, and then we have this time in this form inside this story, and then how far do we go along in that trajectory of the possibilities of the soul discovering itself and getting free, to disentangling from a lot of karma. So those life stages like that, yeah.
It's fascinating, and I really like the fact that you're also making some astrological references to the different stages too. You know, because we
Yes,
mentioned earlier that Jung was also a student of astrology,
very much
and
so.
you know, there are indeed like different stages that can be associated to different planets, right? And it's fascinating the
Absolutely.
way you can so easily make the connections. You know, remember in those days that we're gonna have a final special video as well, interview on astrology itself.
Yeah.
But sorry,
You need to
can you
drink a
tell
little
us?
water?
No, it's okay.
Drink a little water. Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about the typology instead, different personality traits?
Right. Jung's typology is really uh, a quite impressive uh, compass for navigating the interpsychic, the psychological subjective realm. It's like a mirror holding up to your own essential nature. And he developed it. He wrote the book, um, uh, Psychological Types, 1921, right after he emerged out of his profound confrontation with the unconscious, and that yielded the Red Book, and really the everything that's in his psychology revealed in that period of time, visions and dreams, and anyway, this was like a a map to orient and organize the material of the psyche, the psychological realms of the unconscious, and self knowledge, like a definite. Human beings have been, of course, doing types forever in healing arts, and then the Greeks and the Ayurvedic people, and it's just everywhere. But in Jung's typology, um, it's like one of the core principles and phenomena in Jungian psychology too is the notion of polarity. That it's like the yin yang, the polar, the light and the dark, the male and the female, and the wholeness that occurs in that polarity when it's integrated and made. So, like how the yin and the yang, the lunar and the solar, the dark and the light, become one in the circle of the Tao. And so the same thing, the psyche is always, there's always this wholeness that is intrinsic, but there's also the polarity, just like a battery pulls. You need that for psychic energy and for consciousness to occur. So when you're looking at typology, the first level is the polarity of whether you're a extrovert or an introvert. So again, yin yang. Extrovert is yang, is masculine. Introvert is yin, lunar, feminine. So I would say you're an extrovert. I know I'm an introvert. And it's like there's a formulation in the test that they use. It's very famous. It's used extensively now, even the Briggs-Myers-Stanton test for typology and psychological assessment, and they use a short, like so I'm a INTJ. So I'm an introvert, intuitive thinker, judgment. And each one of these is a polarity. So you start at the top, the introvert, extrovert. My case, I'm an intuitive. You, I would guess, are a thinking type. I mean, we haven't done your test or anything, but just knowing you a bit,
Mm-hmm.
And so if thinking is the dominant function, then again the polarity is always built in. There's the opposite of thinking is feeling. So it's like the battle of the sexes right there too, thinking and feeling, logos and eros, or intuition, in my case, is my dominant, but intuitive and thinking are really strong together too. Intuition, the polarity The opposite is sensation, earth element. And it's all based on elements too. Earth is sensation function, and it's yin. Water is feeling. So water and earth, feeling and sensation, are the two feminine yin principles. And then there are all the yin signs too, the three water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. The three earth signs: Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. And then, so the opposite of intuition is fire. It's always going up, looking for meaning, looking for spiritual inspiration, expansion of consciousness. And thinking is the air element. So it's logos, intelligence, language, communication, all the technologies too, all the devices. That's all. And so the opposite. So intuition's opposite is sensation. So it's like intuition is like the absent-minded professor. You know, they're like always their head in the clouds. They're studying the great verities of life, but they forgot to eat. You know, or they weren't wearing their socks and went out, you know, somewhere. They, you know, they're just not in their bodies fully. Somebody is strongly sensation. So for an intuitive, their shadow is going to be inside the sensation. That's where the work is. That's where the unskillfulness and the place to learn is, you know. So how to find your body, how to be more grounded, how to, and then for people that are strongly sensation, earth element, their shadow is going to be in the intuitive realm. So that to them, it's just like, what's all this mumbo jumbo and new age jargon, and you know, just what the hell, just, you know, it's just what did you have to eat? You know, let's go, you know, let's go and let's party, man. You know, and so, and then thinking and feeling. Somebody's, you know, you want a reason for things, and things should make sense, and it should, you know, it's like this. You're being irrational. Why are you being so emotional? Why are you? You're losing control here. You know, you need more control. And then the feeling types is you're a control freak. You want an explanation for everything. You know, you just so it's like the alchemy is how do you bring those together, and the shadow is immediately revealed as soon as you have a clear sense of what your superior function is. Automatically that reveals the inferior function, because it's always the opposite. In astrology,
Okay,
two opposites.
so you tend to identify more with sort of the aspects of your personality that are natural, or you know, sort of the predispositions that you have. And
Right.
a very good exercise in order to understand the shadow and then integrate it is to look at the opposite end instead, and maybe
Yes.
take on a hobby or a pursuit or something in life that you know,
Yeah.
gets you out of your comfort zone, indeed, because your comfort zone is your
Exactly.
predisposition, your main
Right.
capacity, right? Your main ability. So a good exercise is then to go to the opposite end. For instance,
I go to
myself,
the opposite. Absolutely. Very,
yeah, so
very important.
I love going hiking up in the mountains. I'm very much you know, in the earth, and also in the
Yeah.
sky, sort of air element. But
Sure.
then if you throw me into the ocean, I struggle a little bit more. So maybe that's where I have
Right.
to do, like, take on a scuba diving
Yeah. So
course.
yeah, the feeling thing. You know, I mean, those are like exercise, but you know, the most obvious place where feeling happens is in your relationship. You know, with your partner, and what's happening with the feminine, or what's happening with the, you know, you know, trying to understand each other, trying to be, you know, really, you know, like be vulnerable too. Like thinking types don't like to get too vulnerable. They want to kind of keep, you know, keep on top of things. And so it's like, and the feeling type, they need you to be vulnerable. They want you to feel what they're feeling. They want you to, you know, so it's like, and so when that's happening intrapsychically, because all the work is inside of you, that it's about what is it like to become vulnerable? What is it like to really have strong feelings of connection with somebody, where it makes you feel, wow, you know, I'm not in control here. I'm not, you know, and or just, you know, strong moods, or so that's where the work is. And so for an intuitive type, the work is in just getting grounded, getting, you know, going out for a hike like that, you know, getting, you know, eating regular meals, regular times a day and things. And but for the sensation type, they need to experience more awe in the symbolic dimension of life, in the spiritual level of life, you know. And these are the real pragmatic people. Show me the bottom line, and okay, you know, you get this, do this, this, and this, and it's going to work, you know. And so that polarity, and so you have like your dominant function, you have an auxiliary function, like in my case, thinking. I'm an intuitive thinker. I have the exact same formula as Jung. He's an INTJ. I'm an introvert. He is a powerful introvert. That's why you get so much information from inside, right? Your attention's, you're looking in the interior, and then sometimes you can have a third function. It's, you know, that can work for you too. But the opposite of your strongest function is the inferior function, and that's where the shadow material is, in that material. And then you open up to another polarity they call judgment and perception. And also there's one more polarity too. Judgment and perception. We'll do that first. Judgment is logos. It's the sword. The imagery from the tarot, it's a sword, the intellect, separating, you know, like analyzing. And perception is perception is the feeling self. That's you're affected by what's happening around you, the mood of the room, what's happening in the, you know, you're recording experience all the time. And then the polarity is rational, irrational. So the four functions are two rational functions and two irrational functions. And the two rational functions are thinking and feeling. Thinking, you know, it's like that makes sense, kind of, you know, reason and rationality, thinking function, air element. Feeling too, feeling also, you know, it's like it's a value, they call valuation. It's about what do I like, what do I don't like, what are, you know, orienting yourself to what you really, you know, like discernment that way. And then the irrational functions are intuition and sensation. They're like kind of other worlds, like the intuition function, you know, is dealing with like other realms and other levels of reality and symbolic dimensions and depth dimensions. And it's always looking for meaning. It's like meaning. What is the meaning? What is the meaning? And looking for the roots of meaning. And sensation is irrational because it's the body, you know. It's like it's all these autonomic systems, automatic systems, all these instincts and drives. And so all these polarities, yeah, all these polarities are things that's where the integration has to occur. And where you know, it's like when the tension is strongest, that's where the most work is, the most alchemy. So like, you know, thinking and feeling in your case, for me, intuition and sensation. So that's all things you can, and you can identify it so quickly and automatically through the horoscope. Jung used horoscopes all the time. And actually his eldest daughter, he had 5 children. His eldest daughter, not all of them became, you know, married and had children, married, you know, bankers and different things. But the one daughter, she was the eldest daughter, Gret, her name was. She was an astrologer, and a well-known astrologer in Zurich. So she used to do Jung's patients' charts for him.
It's very clear. You know, the HinduDave is very clear. I feel like talking to you is so interesting for me because I'm learning so many things, you know. And we're gonna have one more episode focused on astrology. So we're gonna look at many of the things we already looked at in the first video. In the first video, looking at God archetypes and mythology.
Yes.
The second interview, which is about Jungian psychology. So that's a different lens on the same reality. And the last one is gonna be astrology, archetypal astrology, where we're going to bring all together and learn about not just you know, the horoscope and what's going to happen today or tomorrow. Actually, how archetypes are embedded into our lives and how we can understand ourselves through studying the symbols of astrology. That's fantastic. So thank you very much again, you know, for spending so much time and effort talking to me today. And I look forward to having our next video very soon. Okay. Kapun kap.
To be continued, brother. Okay. Take good care, man. See you later.
Thank you very much. Bye from Kopangan to Pai.
Yes. Good connection.